Welcome to another episode of the Chuck It Up podcast. We are here again with you guys on another week for the Down and Distance series where we talk about sports. So feel free to hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or if you want to listen to the audio only version, you're out on the go, you're at work. Follow us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and we have a new one. We just got accepted to Pandora Podcast, so make sure if you are on Pandora, subscribe to the Chuck It Up channel. We appreciate all the support you guys have given. Without your support, we wouldn't have been able to get that acceptance letter from Pandora and iHeartRadio and some of these other platforms. So again, we're very appreciative. Before I start the show off, the giveaway is going to be reopened. The winner, FB Sports, decided that he did not want to provide a shipping address for the hat. So feel free to comment down on this video below. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, and I will pick another winner by next week's episode. So those of you listening to the podcast, go on YouTube, search the Chuck It Up podcast. Search for this video. It's going to be one of the first videos I release, but go ahead, comment on that, and I will pick a winner from there. So I appreciate you guys there. But man, it's been a crazy week. I apologize to everyone on YouTube that with my uploading schedule this past week has been crazy. So I apologize. We'll make sure that the uploads, the scheduling of uploads is back to normal, where it's like 1 or 2 every day. So again, much appreciated, but let's go ahead let's skip the pleasantries, well, at least whatever's left of it, and get into the show. So the kickoff segment, and I've been waiting for a week to talk about this. I actually recorded my podcast last week, and then this news came out like immediately after, and I was upset that I wasn't able to comment on it while it was fresh. But it's a week, it's a week later, and I mean, it's still being talked about on some of the major sports networks, so I feel like I haven't missed out on the boat yet. But let's get into this. The Jamal Adams officially requesting a trade from the New York Jets. Man, I mean, it seems like the guy just got into the league last year. But so if you haven't been paying attention at least to the player side when it comes to contracts, Jamal Adams has been requesting a new contract with the New York Jets. He was drafted in 2017, so this would be, I believe, his third year coming up, and he's requesting a trade. He feels that he's outperformed his contract, and he wants to be paid as the top safety in the NFL. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Before I even, talk about anything to that level, I do want to mention that the players should fight for what they want. So I'm not going to bash Jamal Adams on, fighting for what he thinks he deserves, because he knows his worth, and he's gonna make decisions based on that. So I can't fault him for what he's doing now, but I will give my opinion on it. So, and that, because that's what I do on the Chuck It Up podcast for the Down and Distance series. But anyways, contract wise, I said that he wants to be the highest paid safety in football. For those of you that don't know who the highest paid safety in football is, it is Eddie Jackson, the safety from the Chicago Bears. And the reason why this is important, not only because he's the top paid safety in the NFL, but Eddie Jackson, well, I'll talk about his contract. His contract right now is $58 million contract, $22 million fully guaranteed, and he's getting roughly around 14.6 annually if he was to play all the games and everything. It's a pretty good contract. Obviously, it's pretty good because he's the top paid safety in the NFL. The funny thing about this situation is Eddie Jackson was actually in the same draft class as Jamal Adams. So while Jamal Adams is, while a lot of people are saying, hey, he still has 2-3 years left on his contract, Eddie Jackson is coming from the same draft class. Now, that's what makes this ironic. But the issue is that Jamal Adams, well, issue or not issue, but the issue is that Jamal Adams was selected in the first round. So for those of you that don't know, when you're selected in the first round of the NFL draft, you sign a 4-year contract, but you have a 5th year option. Like the team has a 5th year option to pick that up. And so they essentially have you for 5 years if you're a good player. And then you count on the franchise for 2 more years. So essentially, if you're a first round pick and you're good, the team pretty much has you handcuffed for 7 years before they even want to give you another contract. Eddie Jackson was drafted in the 4th round that year by the Chicago Bears, and in the 4th round is a 4-year contract. Obviously, the salary is a lot different when you're a top 10 player or a top 10 pick in the NFL draft compared to a 4th rounder. So Eddie Jackson has been getting underpaid as well, but Jamal Adams doesn't have that wiggle room that Eddie Jackson has because he was picked in the 1st round. So the team has him essentially under contract for another 4 or 5 years if they really wanted to. But this is starting to get ugly. There is, I mean, again, I'm all for the players fighting for what they deserve and what they think they're worth. And, in this case, Jamal Adams has been a great safety in during his time in the NFL. But let me take a chance to talk about player empowerment. Again, fighting for what you want. And good for Jamal Adams for being in line with his agent. And maybe his agent might not agree, but his agent understands that Jamal Adams is a great player and he's going to be bringing him money later down the line. He's going to get paid. It's just a matter of when. So, taking control of their careers, it's one of those things where I think it goes a lot further than just the contracts as well. I think this has to deal with the CBA. This has a lot to do with the CBA as well. I think if the players were united in the CBA and, there wasn't, they didn't have to deal with some of these things that they're locked into with the CBA as far as like contracts that aren't guaranteed and not being fully guaranteed contracts like some of the other leagues out there. The NFL players need to be in unison when it comes to CBA voting. They need to make sure that they are meeting with all of these players. Now, I know COVID's going on, but they need to be meeting with all of the players because it's usually the players. You have your high percentage of players that's getting paid top money, right? You have some of the guys that are, have solid contracts, and then a majority of the rosters for each team are guys that aren't making that much. So in cases where there's a lockout, the people that really suffer the most are the majority of players that can't afford to not play games and not get a paycheck. So there has been veterans, Marquise Pouncey, I believe, the one from the Steelers, he's talked about potentially lending out money to some of the players or giving money to the players, at least on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to salary, to kind of hold them together during the CBA negotiations. Because when it comes to money and the CBA negotiations, a lot of these players are going to make the financial decision when it's like, okay, well, either I could wait, and not get paid and do the right thing, or, and I'll be struggling, or I could just say yes, and maybe it might not be the most money that we could get as a whole, but, at least I know the checks will still keep coming for the time being if I'm still on the roster. But so the NFL players, it's especially the veterans, need to take charge when it comes to again meeting with the team, meeting with their team, their teammates, and maybe holding like player only meetings or retreats or something like that. After every year, there's like an annual retreat for the players where they could just discuss, hey, what do we want when the new CBA comes into play? So then by the time the next generation of players come in, and the CBA negotiations are ready to go, they have a good list of, hey, these are some things that we need to fight for. These are the things that we're not going to give up on. Like, there's no way that we're going to, there's no leeway on these items here. These items here, we have some flexibility. We're willing to discuss this. And then these items here are a little bit lower on the totem pole, but we'll, continue to monitor those. Something like that where they have a player retreat, I think would be very helpful for NFL players. And I don't want to get off on a tangent there because, again, I'm focusing on Jamal Adams specifically. But the last thing I'll talk about with the CBA and the NFL and players, revenue sharing is that the NFL, Their current revenue share for players is 48.5%. It was just increased with this new CBA from 47 to 48.5%. And they still don't have guaranteed contracts. Compare this to the NBA and the MLB, who have a 50% player revenue share and guaranteed contracts. And then even in the Premier League, their player revenue share is 57%. So while those sports have more games, and you could argue that soccer is probably the most popular, or soccer is the most popular sport in the world because almost every country plays it. The NFL, for whatever reason, still has no guaranteed contracts and the lowest player revenue sharing out of like the major sport leagues. And that's unacceptable. The players need to stick, to their guns. They hold more power than they know if they all stick together. So anyways, Jamal Adams recently released a list of 7 teams, but there was another team added that he told someone verbally. So I'll go through the list of teams that Jamal Adams has stated that he is interested in getting traded to. He's provided this list to the Jets. He's provided it publicly. So Jamal Adams, let me read the list. So here's the Cowboys. Now, I don't see the Cowboys trading for him, but just for the simple fact that they don't even have enough money to pay Dak Prescott what he wants. To bring in Jamal Adams, they definitely won't have enough to pay Dak Prescott. And if they do trade for Jamal Adams, Dak Prescott won't be re-signing with the Cowboys like at all. That would be a slap in the face to him if they trade for him and then give him a huge deal and make him the highest paid safety in football. So the Cowboys, I don't think that one's a realistic option for Jamal Adams. The Ravens, that would be a great fit for Jamal Adams. I mean, defense with all of the playmakers that the Ravens have had in their history, especially on the defensive side of the ball, Jamal Adams, you could see him fitting in there, especially with Earl Thomas. I mean, that would be a crazy 1-2 punch. So the Ravens would be a good fit. But are the Ravens willing to give up that capital? I mean, they still got to worry about paying Lamar Jackson when his time comes up. So, this contract is something that, people, it holds a lot of weight when it comes to talking about trading for Jamal Adams. Now we're going to talk about the Texans is the third team. So the Texans, I'm sure they could pay him. They still have to pay Deshaun Watson. They got rid of a huge contract in, what is the receiver's name? Hopkins. So I'm assuming they have money to pay Jamal Adams, but are they really a team that's going to continue to win? Is Deshaun Watson going to really commit to the Houston Texans and Bill O'Brien based on what his current actions are as the coach / GM? I see that one as a tough one. The Kansas City Chiefs, that one, again, they still haven't paid their quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is going to set the market for the quarterback. And, is there going to be enough money to go around? Tyreek Hill, I think he might have renewed his contract, but again, they still have a lot of players that still need to get paid for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm not sure where Jamal Adams fits as far as salary cap with the Kansas City Chiefs, especially after you win a Super Bowl. Usually whenever you win a Super Bowl, those players that are on like a contract year, they tend to want more than what they were really worth because they just won a Super Bowl. So they usually hit the market. But I'm curious to see that. The San Francisco 49ers, that one is interesting. I think that would be a good fit for Jamal Adams to go with the San Francisco 49ers and partner up with Jimmy Ward. I believe he's still there. That would be a good fit. Seattle Seahawks, I think, will also be a good fit for Jamal Adams. And then the one that was added, and I'll get to the 7th team that he listed, but the one that he added, he told this one to Ryan Clark, was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, I can see why he would want to play there. You want to play with Tom Brady and the rest of those guys. He thinks that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a shot at winning this year and in the future with Tom Brady, maybe Tom Brady for another year or two. But Jamal Adams is talking about that he wants to win and get paid. It's hard to get both. You have to take a cut somewhere, especially if you want to set the market at safety, because usually the top teams in the NFL, don't have the highest paid safety on their roster. So that's a difficult one. But the last one that he mentioned that he gave to the New York Jets was the Philadelphia Eagles. You know why I saved that for last. The Philadelphia Eagles was on his list. That would be a great fit for Jamal Adams. It would probably be the best fit. And this is my unbiased opinion, as unbiased as at least I could get. But we just lost Malcolm Jenkins. We have the salary cap to make it happen. Wentz is under contract. Ertz, if we trade for Jamal Adams and make him the highest paid safety, Ertz unfortunately will probably have to walk because he's already looking for a new contract currently. But we have Dallas Goedert, who maybe I'll talk about. I forgot to even add him to the show, but Dallas Goedert made news this week, and not a good way. But we have Dallas Goedert. I think he could take over that Malcolm Jenkins role that Malcolm Jenkins left, that void that he left in the defense. The Eagles addressed this during free agency. They addressed it during the draft. But adding a player like Jamal Adams, the Eagles have enough money to pay him. The problem is, how much is it going to cost to get him from the Jets? I think off rip, it's going to be a first rounder plus, especially with now. I think the max right now is going to be what the Rams paid for Jalen Ramsey. They gave up 2 first round picks. I don't think Jamal Adams is worth 2 first round picks. Jalen Ramsey is the best corner. Well, in my opinion, he's one of the best, or I think the best corner in the NFL. And 2 first round picks was, a good deal for Jalen Ramsey, especially who's that young, and could play. He's a freak. He's a generational talent. Jamal Adams, not to say he's not a generational talent, but we're still trying to figure out. Again, he's a good player, but is he a great player? He makes some great plays, but I don't think he is like the Jalen Ramsey of safeties. So Jamal Adams, I don't think it should cost 2 first rounders. I think the most that the Jets should ask for is probably a first and a third, maybe a first and a second, but there's no way that a team will be paying 2 first rounders when, Jalen Ramsey on the trade market got 2 first rounders. He is, I think, exponentially more valuable to a team than Jamal Adams. And that's no offense to Jamal Adams. It's just that the corner position is that valued in the NFL right now, especially a lockdown corner with length like Jalen Ramsey, who could also be physical in the run game. So that's a tough price to pay for the Eagles. But just going back to Jamal Adams' play, in 2018, he was graded the second best safety in the NFL, a 91 grade by Pro Football Focus. And then last year, he got an 87.9, so not as great as the year prior, but still a pretty good season where he was top 5, top 10 safety in the NFL. So the dude could play. He was on a bad team. Take it for what it's worth, but I think on a good team, he will be able to play a lot better, especially a team like the Eagles who need somebody, a playmaker at the safety position. I think Jamal Adams would be a great fit, but not for 2 first rounders, no. So what would the Jets do? What would I do if I was the Jets? If I was the Jets, I would honestly keep him. I wouldn't trade him unless there was an offer again for a first and a second. I think if they were to trade him this year, I think a first and a second would do. Just because, again, he still has years left on his rookie deal. And not to mention if they wanted to franchise tag him. So they have him for a year. He's already under contract. He's agreed to contract. If he wants to sit out, that's on him. He'd be forfeiting money. But if I'm the Jets, I don't trade him unless there's a deal that, the team's not going to come in and say, oh, we're going to get him for less than his market value just because he's disgruntled and he wants to leave. No. I'm going to get what he's worth up front. There's no discount here. And we're not going to trade him if people are looking for a discount or teams looking for a discount. If I'm the Jets, a first and a second will do. I'll take that for a safety. Obviously, I wouldn't want to get rid of him in general. I would try to figure out how we could pay for him. I think the Jets should just go ahead and divvy up and pay for him, to be honest. But, Joe Douglas, who came from the Eagles, working with Howie Roseman, they put a lot of emphasis on the offensive line, defensive line, quarterback position to build the team. That's where majority of the money should be going to. And I don't think Joe Douglas really values his safety that highly to make them the highest paid safety in football. Now, it might be right, it might be wrong, but that's just how it's been with the Eagles, at least under Joe Douglas, who is currently the Jets GM. So, and he's been very vocal of him wanting Jamal Adams to stay as a member of the Jets. But I understand Jamal Adams' frustration, especially when another safety from your same draft class that was drafted 3 rounds after you is the top paid safety in the NFL now. So, I mean, take it for what it's worth. So, Jamal Adams, hopefully he gets paid, man. If he wants to go to the Eagles give him a first and a second. I mean, if the Eagles gave him a first and a second, I mean, that's a lot, to be honest. But at the same time, we have COVID-19, so we don't even know if there's going to be a college football season. The scouting might be really off this upcoming year. So if I'm the Eagles, maybe I take a shot at it. Again, they could pay him. They have the money to pay him. And I don't think the extension from his rookie deal won't take place until like another 3-4 years. So they have enough money to make it happen. A first and a second. Like I said, if I'm the Eagles, I do a first and a second, nothing more than that. First and a third, ideally, maybe. Again, the NFL draft is, because of COVID-19, we don't know how the college football season is going to play out. Again, I'll get into where it stands currently with the NCAA and college football athletes when it comes to COVID, but it's not looking promising as far as the college football season, which leads to, again, basing all of your scouting and recruiting based on the prior year, which could be knocking everything off when it comes to recruiting and setting boards for the draft for this upcoming year. So hopefully Jamal Adams get paid at the end of the day. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more fire sports takes. And for those of you who are on the go, make sure you subscribe to our full show, which airs every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a bunch more. Until then, I'm chucking it up, and I'll see you guys next time.